All right, so we're going to be here with our buddy R.C. Carter, who's running this operation. He is really pioneering regenerative raising of cattle in the country, and it's proud to be here in Wyoming. So we're going to learn a bit about his style of management and see his operation. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Look at how cute this pig is. They've got chickens here. There's even like a goose here and some sort of stork thing that came in. Oh, here you go, sniff mama. We have some Idaho shag puppies here that Annie and RC breed. They're a cattle dog. This one's crying, I'm gonna put him back. There's so many in here. They're mostly used for driving the cattle. They are a mutt or a new breed. You'll find that the Idaho shags come out looking quite a bit different because there's not really a breed standard for them yet. They're very cute, very sweet. Awesome little dog. Overall, what is it you guys are just doing here?
I mean, we're just basically trying to vet out and redefine a beef cattle ranching model that doesn't rely on, a bunch of commodity inputs, and raise nutrient-dense beef and kind of heal soil at the same time.
We're raising a family, and we're trying to improve the land and make it work for us instead of us work so hard for it. We're using our resources in a way that is beneficial to ourselves and the next generation to make them want to get excited to stay here.
What you guys said makes a lot of sense to me, and I would just assume that that is what everyone's doing.
I mean, after World War II, there was like this big push to get everybody, to increase food production. And so, there was a lot of chemical companies that were going to go out of business after the war. And so they figured out ways to stay in production by putting chemicals, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium on soils to increase growth. And so we've just basically, we have participated in that model in the past, but we've seen its limitations because it comes at the expense of soil ecology, which is just like the natural cycle and the natural biology that lives within our soil. And when you put these chemicals on healthy soil, it dies. And so we've just taken a different approach to say, hey, we are, knowing that we are soil, we come from nature, maybe this isn't the right way because it is also very expensive, and just kind of vetting out not really a new process, but just going back to older processes. We're trying to create new systems because everybody would be on board if there was the alternative to the commodity norm, right? So, because the commodity norm, like what we see is like farmers and ranchers are going away at an alarming rate. The suicide rates through the roof, ag debts at a, crazy, foreclosures. Like, we are losing the farming and ranching community. And then on the consumer end of it, like, we look at our food, like it's full of these long words and like stuff that's like not a poison today, but it's determined that it's a poison tomorrow. And so it's this linear system of food production that is controlled by these middlemen, these giant, multinational corporations. They keep all the money. And so we need to bring the cost of food down to the consumer. And the farmer and rancher, they need to make more money. And so the question is, are the guys in the middle willing to give up some? And that answer is no. So we have to figure out, like, we have to rethink and reimagine like what a healthy food system looks like, because there is enough to go around. And it's fun, it's challenging because it's right there, but we just have to, keep going and develop it. Boss! Boss! And see, they'll just kind of wander over. But we've trained them throughout the year, rather than, this approach of being, chasing cows to, like, basically be the leader of the cows, and then they follow you because they know if you call them, they're going to be going into greener pastures.
All right, so we're in the pasture here, and I guess for folks who don't know, what does it mean to raise livestock regeneratively, holistically? Like, what goes into that in terms of the management style?
At the foundation of it is just like being aware, you know. It's like the land speaks, so you've got to have your finger on the pulse, like at all times, and not getting caught up in just like a prescription. We're going to do this because that's what we're going to do. It's more of like working with like, what's the weather doing, you know, and just like having an awareness and understanding soil and land and animals and nature and people and, you know, the relationships involved to make stuff happen, but just like kind of going against the commodity norm and not just going with what we've, you know, all been told for so many years.
I guess foundationally what you're saying earlier, right, is working with nature, not against it. So I know, you know, just common themes are rotational grazing. Annie was talking earlier about the dangers of monocropping. Maybe you could shed, you know, more light on that aspect of it for the listeners.
There are so many varieties and different types of grasses in here with different amounts of protein, and we have them tightly together so they can't be too selective, so they have to eat almost everything. But I mean, it's just going to show up in their flavor profile and their beef. Plus, they're healthier and they're happier. They're not scared of us right now. They feel safe, they feel comfortable, and we are able to connect with them because we can be close to them and we can see them every day. You know, even when they're on the mountain, we can get right up to them. So we have that animal husbandry, that animal relationship, which I think is important as well. You've got to be with your animals. You have to be amongst them. They get to eat this awesome buffet.
Well, and you have to like look, and I mean that is a lot of animals.
Yeah.
But then you think back in time about what was here prior to what we're doing now, right? And so you had these giant herds of bison that would come through, which is still visible like on the landscape. I mean, you can still see some of the trails on those red hills, right?
Like the buffalo
and
trails.
it wasn't cattle, it wasn't sheep. Like when we go up the mountain, there's like these hillsides that are like they're that steep, right? So nobody in their right mind would go trail sheep or cattle there. You would take the easier place. But that is really like, that's what was here. When you would have a herd of 4 million bison would come through, and you know, they talk about the historical record and that like the U.S. cavalry fell in behind the herd of a bison and their horses almost died because they never saw a blade of grass for 3 years or 3 days. Like that was the reality of it. You had these massive herds would come through and they would eat everything, not to return for a couple of years to let it regenerate. Their stomachs would inoculate the soils, and they would take out invasive species, and they would just like, that was the natural rhythm. And then, you know, the bison were all murdered, killed, whatever. And then, you know, we saw these like massive cattle drives coming up from the south, and they had the same thing. It was the high intensity, low time duration as the herd would move through, but they eliminated the rest period. So then we saw this like massive degradation of our soils and our rangelands. And then in like 1923, or was it 23 or 34, the government recognized like there's a problem out here in the West. So they implemented the Taylor Grazing Act, which is the opposite of what the bison were doing. We went from a high intensity, low time duration to a low time duration, high time duration, low density. And then we've been operating that way for 90 years now. And so we're just like, if we understand that nature is perfect, which it is, then all we have to do to fix these problems is just like, let's just go back to doing that. And then, you know, bring some scientists along to quantitate the data. Like that's how we get there. And so
and maybe we can change that Taylor Grazing Act, that model that hasn't been working for 40 years, longer than that now, and mimic what the bison used to do. But we're doing it on a little bit smaller scale, of course. That's why we keep them in a tighter group, and we move them with electric fences to different areas. We keep them together because we want to impact the ground like the bison. So we're just basically mimicking the old way before we started degrading the land.
We're just talking about the bison rolling through here. Obviously, cattle have a lot of different qualities from bison. So is there a reason that you specifically picked this type of cattle breed? Are they better suited for this environment compared to others?
Yeah, I mean, these are called Black Angus, and there's lots of different cattle, but these ones, they're very durable. They're they're strong. They're good for going up and down hills. This isn't flat country, so they have to be, a sturdier framed animal, and they have to be able to, withstand the weather. You don't see many like eared cattle like Brahma Cross, F1 crosses up here, just because they don't do well in the cold. So for Wyoming, like it's a pretty solid cow.
They're robust. They taste good too.
They just basically, we're just using them to, it's an ungulate, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the same as the bison, and I'm sure you could probably use bison, but bison can be a little bit ornery at times, I would imagine. So this is where we're at with it now.
Just walking through here, this forage is incredible. I mean, the diversity you can see. How has that transformed over the past few years? Because you've obviously been implementing this, and it does take some time to see the ROI on the holistic regenerative management. And then how has that affected like your stocking density and just overall how you manage the cattle herd?
I mean, when I got out of college, we just started putting all of our money, extra money, into creating infrastructure. Like this is our irrigated ground, so we put in the pivots, to try to limit the amount of water we're using. And we were, at that point in time, we were all monocrop, but it was just like this constant struggle. Like you're living in a tractor, spending money, diesel, tires, all that. And so once we had the infrastructure in place, it was like the next logical thing was like we need to grow corn, and I didn't enjoy that activity, so just started studying it, and we've just kind of like introduced new seeds and let like whatever wants to grow can grow here. And now we have this like polyculture of 7 different grasses, and if we have more, with new information, we'll introduce new things, new species, and kind of just let it roll. But it's really cool to see that we have been able to wean ourselves off of the chemicals and not sacrifice our yields. And so that's like on the financial transactional side, like that's cool. We're being more cost effective and more productive. But then on like the cyclical part of it is like there's ecology in here, and that kind of warms your soul. Is like you come and you look, and there's life out here, versus a commodity field. The only insects that are living in commodity fields are just the pests. And out here, like we've got there's a diversity of life, which is basically a reflection of the diversity in the microorganisms in the soil. So like as we're ranchers, but really what we're focused on is like we're soil farmers. Like because we know that if we create the environment for the soil with the animals, like that soil is going to get better, and the grass is going to get better, the beef is going to get better, and then our health is going to get better. You got a booger in your hair?
Well,
no, it's not a booger.
We're not the same like routine. We're going to do the same thing every year. We're going to grow this one thing, this one crop, and then we're going to stack it here, and then next year we're going to do the same thing and keep repeating the same cycles, because we evolve, because we're nature as well. So we need to evolve with the land. So we're not just going to do the same thing. We're going to do what works with us, and with the constant changing of the land and our environment, we've got to adapt as well. And so if you're just looking at doing the exact same every year just because it's been done for generations, I think that's the wrong way to look at it. It's like you've got to evolve as well. And so
you can hear them bellering. And so at this point in time, like the calves are, probably 500 pounds. And so they get to where they recognize their mother's beller, and the cow recognize the calf's beller. So they're just trying to find each other, because the calves are still sucking on their moms. They're getting majority of their nutrition from the grasses, but they are still supplementing with milk from their moms.
Do you guys ever get those blue-breasted whatever? Have you seen those? They're in Wyoming.
Blue grouse?
Yeah, they're the ones who kind of
Yeah.
puff up their chest, right?
They're more up in the treed aspen country. So they're, up around 6,500, 7,000 feet elevation. And we're at like 4,200 feet here. But we have there's a lot of sage chickens. There's a lot of Hungarian partridge and huns and pheasants.
You see birds following the herds and sometimes even landing on the backs of the cows, but different animals will start joining the group as well, which is cool to see because they all hang out together. You'll see a bunch of deer and antelope.
I mean, you think about when you have this huge herd of cows, there's going to be a lot of flies that are, basically subsisting off of the manure that comes from the cow, and that's where they lay their larvae. And then you have these massive flocks of birds that come in that dig that manure and eat the larva, which helps cycle it and break it down and move it back.
Another animal that I love is dogs, and I have to ask you, because I know you have some puppies, the Idaho Shags. They all kind of look a little bit different. I know it's maybe a newer breed, maybe it's a mutt. Why do you guys like them?
Most of us grew up with border collies around here, which are great dogs. Love them. Or healers, Australian shepherds. We used to have them for years and loved all those type of dogs. We had cows in southern Wyoming, bear oil. This is a very, very large permit, and we were moving cows with our neighbors, and they had these Idaho Shags. And when you're down in that big country, you're moving cows all day long. And these dogs would not tire. They would go behind cows and they would push all day long. And so I asked our neighbor, I said, what kind of dog is that? I really like that dog. And they're scruffy, they're really cute. And she said, that's an Idaho Shag. And if my dogs have puppies, I'll give you one. And so, or you can get one. And she called me that winter, and sure enough, I grabbed 2 of them. And that's been years back. But we've put them behind cows, we've used them, and they are tough. It's a mixture of Airedale, bearded collie, and healer. Our shags are. There's several types of shags out there, but mostly it's the Airedale and the collie that make up a shag. But they have endurance. They're big jaws on them. They're tough. They can get behind a cow. They can bite a cow. They can get kicked, and they can travel for hours, hours. And so I'm like, that's the perfect cow for us, or perfect dog for us for what we do with our cows, because they're more like drivers. They help you push the cows and get them from point A to B. They probably could herd if you were to train them, kind of like a border collie would, and have them actually come around and bring them around you. But we use them basically for pushing, getting cows from point A to B, and they're tough. And if a mama cow is upset or you have an ornery cow, those dogs are not going to back down. And so that's what I like about the shag. They're tough for tough country.
They have to run. They're actual ranchers. They're not LARPing. They have to go take care of the cows, go do a bunch of business things. So we really appreciate their time. Absolutely gorgeous farm. And of course, where can people actually buy this meat? I know you've got some things in the works here, but maybe where can they buy it right now and in the future? Because what we really have to be doing is supporting local ranchers like this, because if we don't, this lifestyle is going to go extinct, and you're just going to be supporting these giant corporations that do not take care of the animals, do not take care of the land.
So we have a website where you can buy our wonderful grass-fed beef. It's cartercountrymeats.com. We're also on Instagram.
Check us out at Carter Country Meats if you want small 5-10, 20-pound boxes. The most affordable way to get a beef, to get nutrient-dense beef, is just contact us, and we can hook you up with a whole animal.
Yeah, we'd love to do that. Love to fill your freezer.
So we can get those to you for $8 to $9 a pound versus shipping conventionally.
Right. Local's best.
So hit us up direct.
Come here. This is Mama. This is Emmer. She will get after a cow, let me tell you.
Or a UPS man.
What's up, guys?
So this breed of pig, the Kune Kune, is really cool because it's kind of meant for the pasture. So they can almost survive entirely off of just the forage out in the pasture, and they don't root up the land as much. So RC's doing a little pig experiment. We're hoping to buy some of his kune meat in the future. And pork is one of the worst quality meats you can buy on average in America because they're just so feedlot heavy. They'll eat literal trash. So it's cool to see RC trying to pioneer this kune breed pig and really raise pastured pork, and it tastes incredible, I bet.
But it's kind of funny to think out in those fields between all that long grass, randomly there's some pigs. You can see these pigs really do eat just about anything, which is kind of the problem with pork because people will feed them anything to cut down on the price of feed.
It's really cool to be able to go to the ranch that you just bought your cow from, your meat from. So that's what we did here today. RC and Annie are proof of people doing it the right way, restoring the ecosystem, restoring the soil health, which translates to higher quality, higher nutrition meat for us to consume. So this is what it's all about. It's the connection to your environment, to the ecosystem. That's what they're preaching here, and it's really important for this message to continue to proliferate. So go see your local rancher, buy locally, and get connected.
Support them, go on their website, but also look locally where you are. Do what me and Tristan did. We naturally both met RC separately and became friends with him because of our mutual interests. So go out there, build local community, become friends with your local ranchers.